Just a few quick reminders. Just remind everyone we have that medication drop-off box in the lobby of police headquarters. We just emptied it again, so it's being used on a regular basis. So we want to continue offering that service. And also, so everyone knows, basically, Josiah Morrissette, as I stated before, is our firearms licensing officer, and he's a grant writer for the department. And as you know, community policing is very important with the agency. We had a very successful toy drive during the Christmas season. We thank you for your support. We'll be assisting the PTO at McCluskey Middle School. The police department and fire department will have teams again in dodgeball tournament. If you have nothing to do on those dates, I'll be posting that on the Facebook page. And if you haven't already, just try to check out the Uxbridge Police Department Facebook page, the fire department page, and also now our K9 program has their own social media page. And what Officer Morrissette won't tell you is what he does in his spare time, which I consider part of an arm of the police department, is he volunteers at the community gardens, and he rototills gardens for people up there and helps out. And that just shows the commitment that he has to the community. And I'm very appreciative of that as police chief, that our officers do a lot of things for the town and for our area while they're off duty as well. So I want to thank Josiah for all his hard work, and now I'll turn the microphone over to him, and he can explain to you about some of the specialties that he does with the Uxbridge Police Department.
Thank you, Chief. A lot of times we hear, I don't know any of the officers down at the station anymore. Okay. It's the microphone. I don't want to be screaming in the microphone. A lot of times we hear that we don't know the officers down at the station anymore. Well, to let some of you know, I've been on the police force full-time since 2001. I grew up in Uxbridge. My grandparents were here. I lived most of my life here. My grandfather worked at the shop. My grandmother worked at Walkentuck. Growing up, I remember Sunday afternoons coming with my grandmother here to play bingo. I mean, I've been in town a while. So, like I said, I've been on the force full-time since 2001. In 2003, I started doing firearms licensing under Chief Freitas. There is a process to it. A lot of it is out of our control. Some of it is. There's a lot of legal loopholes. We have to be very careful as to how we proceed with things. But with Uxbridge being what it is, we use a common sense approach to licensing. There is a suitability factor that they built into the laws so that police chiefs who know their towns can make certain decisions on the fly. Since 2003, we use a common sense approach. You may not have anything criminally against you, but from the old Andy Griffith show, we remember the Old Town Drunk. Well, that's somebody we may not want to have a license. That's where the suitability comes in. We don't play that card very often. Not at all. Last time it was researched, 34th in the state for per capita licensing. So our percentages per thousand, we were 34th in the state. We generally don't have a problem with firearms. And we're a big hunting community. We've got several rod and gun clubs in the area, and we don't have a problem. It is what it is. So when Chief Laurie became chief a few years ago, I grabbed him within the first week. I know you got to get settled, but we need to have a talk because different chiefs have different mindsets about how to do licensing. Chief and I had a talk, and we decided to continue doing it the way we had been. Common sense approach. We've had to tell people no. For the most part, our decisions have been upheld. Those that haven't, we've come to an agreement where those people understand you screwed up, we took it, but we're going to give you a second chance. and it wasn't done lightly. So there is a process where you need to take a firearm safety class and fill out an application. Then we meet and do fingerprints and photographs. I do your background checks, request a few things from state. It takes about 6 weeks now to get a license. We have over, I think, almost 1,400 licenses in town, which is almost 10% of the town, which is pretty high. So, like I said, we don't have a problem with firearms. We don't play the suitability card very often, only when we absolutely have to. So a few years ago, after Chief Laurie came into office, came into station, he came in and said, "Who wants to do grants?" I thought, I got a college education. I know there's a problem with funding. I know town budgets are what they are. Sorry. And I decided that, sorry, I just want the mic going into the mic. So I decided if I'm not going to help out, then I'm part of the problem. So I volunteered to do grants for the chief. I have done a bunch of grants for the chief. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know how many. I know that I've been denied, and I've had some that accepted. Right now, the most popular one that we have is Bear. Chief gave me information on the Stanton Foundation. We filled out that application. Their initial grant for Bear was $25,000 that the Stanton Foundation gave us. Stanton Foundation will also be doing more. They actually paid for some of Officer Stockwell's salary while he's in training, after he completed his training. So we'll be contacting them for some of that. There is motor vehicle grants out there that we've applied for. This year we've gotten a child protective seat grant where we can help parents have seats installed. Those who can't afford them, there will be seats available. We're waiting on more information on that. We got a pedestrian grant this year. How many people have had problems trying to cross a crosswalk? We will be addressing that issue. Okay. We have gotten that. The chief will be setting up a plan as to when he wants that done, and we will be addressing the crosswalk issues. A lot of people walk in town. A lot of people park across the street and have to come across. We plan to address that issues. We've done grants for other things. Right now, I'm working on a grant that has nothing to do with the police department, but for the town. Working on a grant for a dog park, where people can take their dogs and walk. It's a long process. It's a long process, but it is what it is. There's a lot of paperwork that goes along with that. Some of the other grants for equipment that we put in, we've been denied. Some it hasn't been our fault. Some I may have been able to write better. It is what it is. The state has a ranking process. The town of Millville got a grant that we were for an APHIS machine, that we went for the same grant and we were denied. It is what it is. We were denied, but there'd be no chance of that money if we didn't even try and apply for it. And that's what we're going for with the grants. Does anybody have any questions?
What's an APHIS?
AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System. It's electric fingerprints, digital. We had a need for it. The chief addressed it. We tried to get it through a couple of grants. The system is not cheap. It's not something that was in our budget. The chief went to town meeting, and the funds were approved. We're currently in the process of having that installed. It's on order right now. And Sergeant Burke's taking point on that. Anybody else have any other questions?
In regards to pistol permits, do you need a permit to carry pepper spray or mace now?
Before, for pepper spray and mace, you used to have a permit. They changed the law as of last August. Anyone over the age of 18 does not need to have a permit for a chemical spray. And I say chemical spray because they have special sprays for dogs. Your pepper spray and mace won't work on a dog. They determined that people under 18, we should probably still have them licensed to hold them accountable. But right now, you no longer have to have a permit for pepper spray or mace.
So what I'll say in closing, if there are no other questions, Officer Morissette's being very humble. He wrote a 911 grant, $30-some-odd thousand just in salary for our dispatchers, as well as equipment and different things. He's written traffic grants, click it or ticket, OUI patrols. He talked about pedestrian safety. He wrote a grant through the NRA, which allowed us to purchase stop sticks for our cruisers. Stop sticks are, if there's a motor vehicle pursuit, we're able to deploy this device, and it basically slowly stops the suspect's vehicle to avoid accidents. And we all know pursuits sometimes end very dangerously, and we try to avoid them whenever possible. So this is him thinking outside the box. So not just going after state and federal monies, but we're also going after private grant monies, as he talked about the Stanton grant. The Stanton grant I believe it's going to be between $10,000 and $14,000 in salary. And then when Officer Stockwell, and he'll talk about this, he'll be going to narcotics school with the dog next August of 2016. They're going to pay for that up to $6,000. So that's something else he applies for. I can tell you he's in my office on a weekly, if not sometimes daily basis with a blue pen, because we have to sign in blue pen, signing grants. And in almost all cases, it's not because of poor writing we're not receiving the grants. It's based on need and there's certain criteria. So certain communities are ahead of us in certain areas, and they're very competitive. So a lot of communities across the Commonwealth and state, apply for these grants. We're going to continue to be extremely aggressive to look for outside funding to offset costs and to make sure that we have the very latest and best equipment and training possible. He'll be going to training, I believe, is it New York or Connecticut? New York. Where my stance is sometimes training can be a little costly, but to bring in money, sometimes you have to make an investment into the grant writer, into the person who's doing that. And training is it's huge for my officers, whether it be a crime scene officer or a grant writer. And people don't really think about that in the law enforcement world. Wow, there's a police officer who's actually writing grants while he's presenting to you, listening to his radio, because there's only 2 officers on duty who has to respond to calls. So there's a lot of extra work that goes into this, a lot of work that he does on his own time. We were able to get him a laptop where he can work from home and do different things for us. So he's being very humble. He's brought in thousands and thousands of dollars to the community in literally 2 short years. And as chief, I'm proud of all of our officers, Officer Morrissette included. So I want to thank you again for having us here today, Masha. And if there are any questions or any issues, please reach out to the police department or through Masha.
Yeah, and I would just like to echo, as a department head, it is no joke to write these grants. And to do it on top of your workload, it really is to be commended. So I think a round of applause for you, Josiah, for all that you do for our community. So if anybody has has any other questions for Josiah, please, if you have,
I
Phyllis?
don't have a question, but I'd like to thank Officer Morrissette. I've known him right from the very beginning.
That's right.
Wonderful, wonderful officer.
He's
You're
homegrown.
one of the ones I still remember.
Yes. We're very happy to have you on the force.
We have tasers. That's what this yellow device is right here. They
What
have
does it do? I mean, like I see on TV, it knocks people down.
I had it done to me once. Once is good enough.
Yes.
I had the dog bite me today. That was
You know what? That's a good fundraising tool. The tasers, all officers have to go through special training. Taser is not my specialty. I am not a use of force instructor or firearms instructor. But the tasers, every officer has to go through it. Most officers are tased themselves, and it is recommended that. So we know how it feels, we know how to work it through it, and we can continue. A single deployment of the taser, it lasts 5 seconds long, and it's 50,000 volts.
Have you had to use it on anybody here at Uxbridge?
No. Not yet. The town of Uxbridge has not deployed their tasers yet. We have spoken to an instructor from another town. He was surprised. You know, I worked the 4 to mid shift for almost 13 years, and I've had to go toe to toe with people. I've been able to talk a lot down. I will tell you that people see the big yellow thing on my hip. Is that a taser? Yep. I don't want to play. Yeah, I'm okay. And just by the ability to have the tool available has been able to de-escalate the situation. And I'm not even talking drawing it out, activating it, or deploying it. Just the sight of it, of this on our hips, has actually worked in our favor.
Good question.
What do you use for spray on the dogs? You said you can't use the mace and pepper spray?
There's actually a pepper spray, not a pepper spray, there's actually a chemical propellant for dogs. Any place that you buy pepper spray will probably have the dog one. It's a green and white can as opposed to like a black can. So there is a difference for the dogs.
And where do you get this? Where did,
First Defense, Savers Bank has it. Fin and Feather, any of the gun shops around where you would buy pepper spray would have it. Walmart doesn't have it, even though they sell ammunition.
Where's the gun shop?
Second floor of Savers Bank.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
That's a small husband and wife that own it. He's been open since, actually, the Burnett Mill fire was his first day of having an open shop. So he's been in there for a while. Good people, they live in town. Does anybody else have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.
Before we end today, thank you, Josiah. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Emma, Brianne, and Kylie. Emma, Brianne, and Kylie, you may have noticed, helped us serve today, and they're going to help us clean up. It takes many helping hands to put this meal together for everyone on Fridays. These young students are from OLV. This is their 3rd Friday here. They're spending 8 weeks with us, and we're very, very thankful and appreciative. Always nice to know that there are students working in the background and thinking about us and willing to come forward to help. So we really give thanks. Thank you so much, and thank you to the next group that are coming. We're looking forward to meeting them. Okay? All right, thank you, everybody. Have a very happy New Year, and we'll see you next time, okay? Come and see us during the week. We'd love to have you here for lunch. Take care.